As a European, I grew up believing that the USA was young, because around here we have cathedrals older than the United States. So I thought to myself, before the United States, there was more. It didn't come up just like that. So I wondered what was more or less the first city that appeared, because it's kind of difficult to pinpoint the first city ever. And I ended up with Florida, of all places. And that's the one fact that kind of broke my mind. The oldest city in America isn't Massachusetts. The oldest city in America isn't Massachusetts. It isn't in Virginia, it's in Florida. It was built by the Spanish in 1565. It's around 55 years before the Pilgrims showed up. Let's be honest, nobody taught me that. I kinda fell onto it. I bumped against this type of information. So today I'm going to find out what happened around there. The oldest, strangest and the wildest state in America. 460 years of history, gators, hurricanes, and madness. And by the end of this, I promise you'll see Florida the same way as I do now. And all of this starts with a fort of seashells that refuses to die.
St. Augustine, and you know what comes to mind. America's oldest city, cobblestone streets, Spanish architecture, horse-drawn carriages, ghost tours, the famous fort, and more stores selling pirate t-shirts per square mile than anywhere else on Earth. Every third building is either haunted, selling fudge, or maybe both. The whole place smells like fudge and history, and you're never quite sure which one you're actually getting. Now, the oldest city claim is technically true. St. Augustine was founded by Spanish colonists in 1565, which makes it the oldest continuously occupied European settlement in the continental United States. And yes, oldest continuously occupied European settlement is doing a lot of work in that sentence.
There's a lot of trees. A lot of trees. That's not something that I see a lot in Europe. Obviously we have trees, okay, that's not what I'm saying. But anytime they do anything that resembles remotely to gentrification, the trees just disappear. We're living in the era of concrete, so that's that, unfortunately.
And yes, Pensacola has been salty about that for about 500 years. But the longer you spend in St. Augustine and the more you start paying attention to what's actually underneath it, the weirder this place gets. There's a fort here built out of seashells, a cemetery with pyramids, one of the first free black settlements in American history, a neighborhood where civil rights history happened directly above a British military fort that nobody even knew was there until very recently, and a street that most tourists walk down thinking is ancient, even though some of it was actually built in the 1960s to look like the 1600s. Yeah, that last one is going to require a bit of explanation. St. Augustine isn't just one old city, it's a stack of cities wearing a pirate hat. Some of those layers are fascinating, some are kind of dark, some are weirdly beautiful, and at least one of these layers was put here on purpose by people who looked at real history and thought, we need to make this even more marketable. So let's get into it.
Everything is so well maintained. I know it's a bit touristy, right? Makes sense. But it's so well maintained. It's incredible, actually. And that's the thing about Florida. Like before the theme parks, before the memes, it was the very first place, 1565. The Spanish just walk in, plant a flag, build streets and churches, while the rest of America is kinda still in its nature form. Here in Europe we act like America has no old history, and we're just wrong about it. American history didn't start with the Declaration of Independence. And I know why some people would make this mistake. And when I say some people, I mean everyone. But let's be honest, it was just hiding in Florida. Let me tell you what gets me here. Because while England was still deciding if the New World was still worth it, Florida already had a functioning town. And that's not a fun fact, because it rewrites everything that we were told about.
Castillo de San Marcos is the oldest masonry fort in the continental United States. Construction started in 1672, it has survived sieges, hurricanes, 3 centuries of Florida weather, and an unrelenting amount of tourist foot traffic. And it's built out of seashells. Not as decoration, I'm talking about the actual walls. The building material is coquina, a sedimentary rock made of compressed shell fragments and sand quarried from Anastasia Island right across the water there. You can stand in front of the fort and see individual shell pieces in the wall. It looks like someone glued a beach together and called it a military installation. And you would be forgiven for looking at it and thinking this looks like a bad idea. Coquina is soft. You can cut it with hand tools, it's porous, sometimes you can even break it apart in your bare hands. It does not scream impenetrable fortress. Except, here's the thing, it actually performed remarkably well under cannon fire. Not by being indestructible, but by being weirdly good at absorbing impact. Cannonballs tended to sink into the coquina rather than shatter it. Where solid masonry cracks and crumbles, coquina just kind of caught the cannonball. The British attacked this fort in 1702.
That's just genius, honestly. And how did he come up with it? It's incredible. Actually incredible.
They tried again in 1740, and both times the fort held up. Built out of what is essentially a fossilized Florida beach. Now, when you're standing in front of the Castillo, you will notice the walls have a lot of dramatic looking pockmarks and cracks and holes. And if you're on tour, there's a decent chance someone will...
She doesn't look that happy to be there. Oh man. But yeah, that's really great, man. That really looks like a place I would visit, honestly. It's so filled with history. Even though it's touristy and they made it up to be able to receive tourists, I understand. But still, there's genuine history there.
Describe these as cannonball scars, evidence of those sieges. And here's where it gets tricky. The fort really did take cannon fire, coquina really did absorb cannonballs, but the dramatic holes you're seeing today are not necessarily battle scars. A lot of what people point to as cannonball damage is actually just erosion, old repairs, or construction modifications from different eras in the fort's history. I know, kinda boring. It's a lot more fun to think about those as cannonball scars, but in reality, it's just time.
Now, a lot of European cities have a fortress made of stone wall, big, hard, and I'm talking about stones here. Florida did the opposite, and that's just genius. Because the fort was built from coquina. Coquina is a soft shell rock, which means that when cannonballs hit it, the wall doesn't shatter. It absorbs the impact. It swallows the cannonballs and the wall just keeps standing. We've built our castles to be resilient, to be sturdy, but cannons crack them up open anyways. But a fort in Florida decided to be soft. And it never fell. That is so smart. It feels even smarter than what my ancestor might have come up with. But this fort isn't even what stopped me cold, because I got my mind breaking up again.
Now this is the one I want you to actually remember. The American story about enslaved people seeking freedom almost always runs north. The Underground Railroad, free states, Canada. North is safety, south is danger. That's the geography most of us learned. But there's an earlier chapter where the direction was different. Fort Mose was established just north of St. Augustine in 1738.
Fort Mose. I thought it was Fort Mose. Okay. Beautiful painting, by the way. I don't really know much about slavery in America. I know about slavery in Europe. But slavery in America, I feel like I'm being lied to. Maybe some of you have a better understanding, better knowledge, but I feel like I've been lied to regarding Confederates. I don't know, maybe some of you can help me out with this, because Confederates do not seem like the bad guys like they've told me all these years. The more I research it, the more I find out about things, I think I've been lied to regarding Confederates. That's something I will check in the future, because there's so much history about it, how Confederates are racists and slave traders, slave owners, but I feel like they are hiding something regarding Confederates the more you get interested in actually studying it, instead of just repeating whatever you heard around. I'm just saying this because, hey, I'm of a curious nature and I don't like to be lied to regarding history. And I know we've been lied to a lot regarding it.
It was the first legally sanctioned free black settlement in what would become the United States, and it existed because of a very specific geopolitical situation at the time. Spain and Britain were rivals, Florida was Spanish, and enslaved people in British colonies to the north, Georgia, the Carolinas, learned that if they could reach Spanish territory, they could petition for freedom. Spanish colonial policy offered freedom to escaped enslaved people who converted to Catholicism and then agreed to serve the Spanish crown, including in the military defense of St. Augustine. So people ran south into Florida toward St. Augustine, toward freedom. And what they built when they got there wasn't just a refuge. Fort Mose was a fortified settlement. The people who lived there became soldiers. When the British attacked St. Augustine in 1740, the Fort Mose militia fought alongside Spanish forces to turn them back. Fort Mose was destroyed in that conflict, but its significance is hard to overstate. It predates the Underground Railroad by nearly a century. It's a completely different geography of black freedom in North America. One that most people have never heard of because it does not fit the version of the story we usually tell. And you can still visit the site today at Fort Mose Historic State Park, just north of St. Augustine.
This is the part that made me put my coffee down. The first legally free black settlement in America. And it was right there in Florida. That means that people escaping slavery from British colonies could escape to Spanish Florida and just live free. That's more than 100 years before Civil War. And obviously that's not the story that I was taught about America. I feel like that is one important topic to reference when learning American history. And obviously it had to happen in the states that everyone treats as a joke. Seems like Florida is hiding real heavy history underneath the chaos. Now this video is part of my US state series. I go over all the states one by one, and I need to know something about this. Like, as an American, do you know about this? Were you taught about this? Like, just leave a comment about it. I'm really interested in knowing, because as a European it would make sense. We do not focus on American history, but as an American, with your education system, was this like ever mentioned to you? And don't miss out my next videos on US state series. Like, hit subscribe, it helps a lot, it supports me, and I thank you for it. I think California's next. But back to the video.
The good old Fountain of Youth Archaeological Park. You might know about this place, you may have seen the signs and have a general sense of what awaits.
The Fountain of Youth. Man, I'm really curious about this actually. It's insane that this was actually... I mean, I know it's a myth, I get it, but it's really funny how this came up to be.
You hear, this is where you can drink from the Fountain of Youth, which sounds like the world's biggest tourist trap when you say it like that. And there are lots of peacocks, and you can drink the spring water, and the gift shop has committed fully to the Ponce de Leon mythology. It is what it is. But here's what gets undersold. The ground the park sits on is actually the Timucua village of Saloy. When the Spanish commander Pedro Menendez de Aviles arrived here in 1565, he did not sail into an empty coastline. He dropped anchor at a large established indigenous settlement. So the exact spot where the Fountain of Youth attraction now stands isn't just the birthplace of Spanish St. Augustine, it's the indigenous town that was here first. So one of the most aggressively kitschy tourist attractions in the city might also be sitting on one of the most historically significant pieces of ground in it. It's a place connected to the beginning of European St. Augustine, framed today by a gift shop and some very confident peacocks. And those peacocks just kind of walk around like they founded the city themselves. Now, I will come back to the Timucua later. They're the deepest layer in this whole story, and they deserve a lot more than a footnote.
Florida has a serious, heavy history around it. But then, because it's Florida, the same exact city gives us a man sailing across an ocean to find a magic fountain that makes you young forever. And pirates, actual pirates, raiding the coast. That's like profound history, complete insanity in the same square mile on the same afternoon. Doesn't seem like any other place does it like they do it. How can I not love this? And sure enough, 400 years later, nothing has changed.
Cody Gribble at 6? Well, you know what? Yeah.
That's crazy.
Smiley. Smiley Kaufman.
I don't know where they live. One of them should be from Florida. And the other one, I don't know, man. Probably European. I'm just kidding. Oh, man. It's insane to just be able to go there quietly and just tap it with his hand in his pocket. That's just crazy. So take the oldest, most stubborn place in America and just let it run for 4 more centuries. This is what we get. Man, in Europe, if this animal appears, we evacuate the neighborhood and we call for a government meeting. In Florida, they give him a name, they film it, and then, hey, my eggs are getting cold. Let's get back to breakfast now. Come on, children. Come on. Come on, children. Stop playing with the gator. Come back home now. The eggs are getting cold. Let's finish up this breakfast. Hey, children. They're not even scared. Like, why would they be? When your city survived cannon fire, pirates, hurricanes. Look, I mean, it's a gator. It's Tuesday. You know?
If you want to understand the tourist version of St. Augustine, the polished, elegant, aspirationally historical version, you need to know about the guy Henry Flagler. Flagler was the co-founder of Standard Oil, which in the 1880s meant he had more money than most small countries. He was kind of like the Jeff Bezos of his time, except instead of trying to colonize space, he colonized Florida with luxury hotels and railroads.
Never heard about him. That's insane. I mean, if he was so rich, I mean, did history erase his name? Like, what happened? Is he well known in the United States? That's incredible to me.
Flagler came to St. Augustine, looked around, and decided it should be a luxury winter resort for rich northerners. So he built the Ponce de Leon Hotel, a Spanish Renaissance revival masterpiece that is now Flagler College. He built the Alcazar Hotel across the street, which is now the Leitner Museum. He extended his Florida East Coast Railroad all the way down to bring guests down from New York.
I'm going to be honest. It kind of looks like a prison. No, I don't know. Kind of looks like it. I don't know the history of the building, but still, it is still beautiful. It is beautiful. And it is well maintained from what I can see.
New York right here. He basically constructed the aesthetic identity of modern-day St. Augustine from scratch. A lot of the stuff people think about when they picture St. Augustine today, the romantic architecture, the luxury resort atmosphere, the polished old-world fantasy, Flagler had a lot to do with that stuff. He helped create the version of St. Augustine that got sold to the world. Ancient, elegant, sun-drenched, Spanish-inspired, and conveniently accessible by train. And because Flagler was building a luxury resort city, every part of the city had to look the part, including the parts that were hard to make glamorous, like the jail. The old jail, a place you can visit today as a museum, was designed with a presentable exterior so it wouldn't clash with the aesthetic of a high-end tourist destination. Flagler didn't want an ugly old county jail sitting right in the middle of his resort city, so the building got curb appeal. It got attention. A facade that said maybe not a jail from the street, but the interior remained a fully operational, genuinely harsh county jail. Even prison had to look nice for the tourists. And here's my favorite little Henry Flagler detail. The Ponce de Leon Hotel was one of the first big grand hotels wired for electricity, with Thomas Edison connected to the project. This was cutting-edge technology at the time in the 1880s. Most people had never been in an electric building in their entire lives. And
okay, but now, like, it is beautiful. I love the colors. Like, the buildings have great colors. It's like amber or something. I don't know. I love it. Really, really looks good. But I have a question about this, that if anyone has ever went there, does it still feel like a town, a city? Or it feels like Disneyland. Everything is so beautiful, everything looks so perfect, and it's so touristy. I feel like this feels more like a theme park. Doesn't really feel like a town where you could actually live? I'm just curious, honestly.
The story goes that for some of Flagler's guests, some of the wealthiest people in America, they were nervous about touching the switches. They were afraid of electrocution, so hotel staff reportedly had to turn the lights on and off for guests who didn't want to touch them themselves. The richest people in the country, vacationing in Florida, these were the robber barons of the Gilded Age. They could crush a labor movement before lunch, but apparently a light switch was where they drew the line.
For those that do not know, electricity was the devil. It's basically what people thought about electricity in the beginning. That, like, it's the devil's work. That's what it is. One man, Henry Flagler, he decides to build a railroad down the swamp coast. Nobody wanted that swamp, and obviously everyone thinks he's insane. But he does it anyway, and that single stubborn decision turns the coastline into Miami, into the beaches, into the entire idea of going to Florida. I mean, the fort, the settlement, the railroad, it's all the same energy. Everyone says it cannot be done, and Florida just does it. Honestly, as a European, I find it so inspiring and terrifying. And this brings me to the most Florida thing of all. There are several hurricanes going through Florida, and people might think, okay, that's it. It might be over. This might be the one. This might be the tragedy no one wants. And every time Floridians look up at the sky, and it's like, not today, not today. They don't run. They board up, they check on their neighbors. And yeah, some of them grill through it. Hurricane barbecue must be crazy as hell. And they are so used to it. They prepare for it. They know it might be the end. And it takes a lot of balls, let me tell you that. We are so ignorant here in Europe, because that's not a common thing. Really isn't. I can only respect that. This is basically coming back to 460 years of refusing to lose. Once you understand Florida, once you understand the Floridians, you understand the whole state. This is what I've been trying to say. Florida doesn't run from the storm. Florida just grabs a flag and turns it into a concert. Oldest city in America. A fort that eats cannonballs. People that stayed free before it was legal. And now this man, in the wind, in a hurricane, with a flag, is madness. Tell me if Lane Pittman isn't the most Florida man that has ever lived. Because honest, it might be. But here's where I land. I came in here ready to laugh a bit with Florida. You know, same old, same old. The Gators, the memes, Florida man headlines. But instead, I just found the oldest city in America. The first free settlement on the continent. Pirates, a youth-obsessed explorer, a railroad through a swamp. Crazy, crazy. And just a group of people that refuses to be beaten. Whether it's nature, empires, or even time itself. Florida never was the crazy state. It's the state that has been surviving the longest. And they're having fun while doing it. But tell me, is there any place in America that you might think comes close to Florida or even surpasses it? I'm really interested in knowing. Let me tell you, I really enjoy doing this one. So I just want to thank you for the subscribers. Thank you for those supporting me directly, the YouTube members. Thank you to all of you. I'm coming back with the US State series, the amendments, and I will still react to random American videos. As I need this, I need to learn more about the United States of America. And thank you for being a part of this journey with me. And I'm sure we'll see each other on the next one.